The lunch rush at Bellissimo hit like a tidal wave every day between noon and 2. Plates crashed in the kitchen, espresso machines screamed, voices overlapped in English, Italian, and Spanish, creating a symphony of controlled chaos that Maya Robinson had learned to navigate with practiced efficiency. She moved through the dining room, balancing 4 entrees on her left arm, wine glasses clutched carefully in her right hand, her body remembering the choreography even when her mind wandered to darker places. Rent was due in 3 days. Her grandmother's prescriptions needed refilling. The electric bill sat unopened on her kitchen counter because looking at numbers she couldn't pay felt worse than ignoring them entirely. Table 12 needs water, Marco called from behind the bar, his Italian accent thick with stress. And table 7 is asking about their osso buco. Maya nodded without breaking stride. Table 12 first, then check on the kitchen, then deal with table 7's growing impatience. The rhythm kept her moving, kept her from thinking too hard about how she was one missed shift away from losing everything. Bellissimo occupied prime real estate in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood, where old money rubbed shoulders with new fortunes, and everyone dressed like they had somewhere important to be. The restaurant itself was beautiful in that effortless way only Italian establishments managed. Exposed brick walls covered with vintage photographs, white tablecloths that cost more to clean than Maya made in tips some nights, and lighting that made every diner look like they belonged in a magazine. She'd worked here for 18 months, ever since her grandmother's stroke had turned their lives upside down. Before that, Maya had been finishing her business degree at DePaul, working toward a future that felt solid and achievable. Then came the hospital bills, the rehabilitation costs, the modifications needed for their small apartment in Bronzeville. Her college fund evaporated in 3 months, her degree went on indefinite hold, and she'd taken the first decent-paying job she could find, serving overpriced pasta to people who tipped based on how much they liked her smile. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The lunch crowd today was particularly demanding. A table of businessmen who kept ordering rounds of expensive wine while barely touching their food. A couple celebrating an anniversary who wanted everything perfect. And table 9, where a woman Maya had never seen before, held court like visiting royalty. She was striking in that calculated way wealthy women often were. Blonde hair styled in loose waves that looked effortless, but probably required 2 hours and a professional stylist. Designer dress that Maya recognized from a magazine she'd flipped through in a waiting room. Jewelry that caught the light with every gesture. Everything about her screamed money, and the particular brand of confidence that came from never questioning whether you deserved to take up space. 2 other women sat with her, both equally polished, laughing at her stories with the enthusiasm of people who knew which side their bread was buttered on. Maya had delivered their appetizers 20 minutes ago, endured the blonde woman's scrutiny as she'd placed each plate with exaggerated care, felt the weight of judgment in the silence that followed. She was heading back to check on their entrees when she heard the crash. Glass shattering. A woman's voice raised in outrage, the particular quality of silence that fell over a restaurant when something went very wrong. Maya's stomach dropped before she even turned around. She knew, somehow, that whatever happened involved table 9. The blonde woman stood in the center of the dining room, red wine dripping down the front of her cream-colored dress. Shards of a wine glass glittered on the marble floor around her feet. And her face, perfectly made up moments ago, had transformed into a mask of fury directed at a server Maya didn't recognize. A new girl, probably not even 20, whose hands shook as she held an empty tray. "You clumsy idiot!" The woman's voice carried across the suddenly silent restaurant. "Do you have any idea how much this dress costs? More than you make in a year, I guarantee it." The young server's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. You moved your arm as I was reaching past and… Are you suggesting this is my fault? The blonde woman stepped forward, invading the girl's space with aggressive confidence. That I'm somehow responsible for your incompetence? Maya moved without thinking. She set down the plates she'd been carrying and crossed to table 9, positioning herself between the furious customer and the terrified server. Ma'am, I'm sure we can resolve this. Maya kept her voice calm, professional, the tone she'd perfected for dealing with difficult customers. If you'll allow me, I can help clean this up, and will of course cover the cost of your dress cleaning. The woman's attention swiveled to Maya like a predator finding new prey. Up close, her eyes were ice blue and absolutely cold. And who are you? Maya Robinson. I'm the senior server on duty. If you'd like to speak with management… I don't want to speak with management. The woman's voice dripped condescension. I want this incompetent girl fired immediately. The young server made a small, broken sound. Maya felt rage bloom in her chest, hot and dangerous. She'd dealt with entitled customers before, had learned to swallow anger and smile through insults because jobs like this required swallowing pride alongside everything else. But something about this woman's cruelty, about the way she was enjoying the server's distress, pushed past Maya's careful control. I can't fire anyone, Maya said evenly, but I can assure you that accidents happen in restaurants. The wine will be removed from your bill, and we'll provide complimentary dessert. I don't want desserts. The woman stepped closer, and Maya could smell her perfume. Expensive, cloying, too much. I want consequences. This girl needs to learn that actions have repercussions. She's already apologized, Maya pointed out, and she's clearly upset about the accident. What more do you want? I want her gone. The woman's smile was sharp as broken glass. In fact, since you seem so invested in defending incompetence, perhaps you should both be fired. Clean house, as they say. The threat hung in the air. Maya felt her carefully constructed life teetering on the edge of collapse. She needed this job, needed every shift, every tip, every dollar that kept her grandmother's medications current and their apartment heated. But looking at the young server's tears, at the woman's cruel satisfaction, Maya couldn't find it in herself to back down. You don't have the authority to fire anyone, Maya said quietly. You're a customer, not an owner. Actually, the woman's smile widened. I'm Victoria Castellano, and my family has very close ties to the Moretti organization, which means I have more authority here than you could possibly understand. The Moretti name landed like a bomb. Everyone in Chicago knew the Morettis. Everyone understood what that name meant. Power, violence, control that extended through legitimate businesses and illegal operations alike. The kind of family that made people disappear when they became inconvenient. Maya's mouth went dry. She'd known Bellissimo was connected to something larger, had noticed the expensive suits and quiet conversations in the back room, the way certain customers never paid their bills and no one ever questioned it. But she'd carefully avoided thinking too hard about who actually owned the restaurant, what kind of people moved through these beautiful spaces conducting business that couldn't withstand daylight scrutiny. I see I have your attention now. Victoria's voice turned saccharine. So, let me make this very clear. You're both fired, effective immediately. Collect your things and get out of my restaurant. Your restaurant? A new voice cut through the tension like a blade, deep, controlled, carrying authority that made Victoria's borrowed power seem like a child playing dress-up. Maya turned and felt the air leave her lungs. The man standing 10 feet away looked like he'd been carved from marble by someone who understood the mathematics of intimidation. Tall, probably 6'3", with the kind of build that came from actual physical work rather than gym memberships. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman coins. Strong jaw, aristocratic nose, cheekbones sharp enough to cut. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of expensive that didn't need labels to announce itself. But it was his eyes that held Maya frozen. Dark brown, almost black, and currently fixed on Victoria with an intensity that made the temperature drop 10 degrees. Mr. Moretti. Victoria's confidence faltered for the first time. I didn't realize you were here. I was just handling a situation with some problematic staff. My restaurant, he repeated, moving closer with the fluid grace of someone comfortable with their own physical power. You called this my restaurant. But unless something changed in the last hour, Bellissimo belongs to me. Not to you. Not to your family. Me. The silence that followed was absolute. Every person in the dining room had stopped pretending not to watch. Even the kitchen had gone quiet. Staff probably pressed against the door, trying to hear. Victoria's face flushed red, then pale. Of course, I misspoke. I simply meant that given our family's close relationship. What relationship would that be? Dante Moretti asked pleasantly. The pleasantness was somehow more frightening than anger would have been. Because I'm struggling to recall any agreement between the Morettis and the Castellanos that would give you authority over my employees. My father and your uncle. Victoria started. Haven't spoken in 3 years, Dante interrupted. Not since your father tried to expand into territory that wasn't his. But perhaps you weren't aware of that, being occupied with whatever it is you do with your time. His gaze swept over her wine-stained dress, the broken glass at her feet, the two friends who'd shrunk back from the table as if distance might make them invisible. Shopping, apparently, and terrorizing my staff. Maya watched Victoria struggle to regain her footing, to find some angle that would save face in front of the entire restaurant. This girl spilled wine on me. I have every right to be upset. You have the right to be upset, Dante agreed. You have the right to request compensation for cleaning your dress, which would have been offered had you behaved like a reasonable adult. What you don't have is the right to fire anyone who works for me. He turned his attention to the young server, who looked like she might faint. What's your name? Sarah, the girl stammered. Sarah Chen. Sarah, go to the break room. Take 10 minutes to collect yourself. Then come back and finish your shift. Your job is secure, and this incident won't affect your employment. His voice gentled fractionally. Accidents happen. That's why we carry insurance. Sarah fled with a sob of relief. Dante's gaze moved to Maya, and she felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. And you are? Maya Robinson. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Senior server. I was trying to de-escalate the situation. By positioning yourself between a paying customer and a new employee who'd made a mistake. It wasn't a question. That's either very brave or very foolish. I haven't decided which. Both, probably, Maya admitted. Something about his directness made honesty feel safer than deflection. But I wasn't going to stand there and watch her get terrorized over an accident. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening around his eyes that suggested approval. Good. That's exactly the kind of character I want in people who work for me. He turned back to Victoria. You need to leave now. Excuse me? Victoria's outrage returned in full force. I haven't finished my meal. Yes, you have. Your meal is over, your bill is covered, and you're no longer welcome in my establishment. Dante's tone remained pleasant, conversational even, but something underneath made Maya's skin prickle with awareness of danger. In fact, I'm extending that ban to include all Castellano family members. You can dine elsewhere from now on. Victoria's friends stood hastily, clearly recognizing threats when they heard them. But Victoria herself held her ground, fury and humiliation warring across her features. You can't ban me. Do you have any idea who I am? What my family? I know exactly who you are. Dante stepped closer, and even Maya felt the urge to back away from whatever radiated off him. You're the daughter of a man who's spent the last 3 years testing my patience. You're someone who thinks family connections excuse bad behavior. And right now, you're someone who needs to leave before I decide this incident requires a more serious conversation with your father about respect and boundaries. The threat was clear. This wasn't about restaurant policy or customer service. This was about power, territory, and the complicated rules that govern Chicago's criminal underworld. Victoria finally understood. Maya watched awareness dawn, watched the woman recognize she'd miscalculated badly. Whatever protection she'd thought her family name provided, it didn't extend to Dante Moretti's legitimate businesses. "This isn't over," Victoria hissed, gathering her purse. "Yes," Dante said quietly. "It is." Victoria and her friends left in a flurry of expensive perfume and injured dignity. The moment the door closed behind them, the restaurant erupted in barely contained murmurs. Maya stood frozen, processing what had just happened, trying to understand why Dante Moretti had defended two servers against a customer with powerful connections. Maya. Her name and his voice made her focus. "My office. Now." Terror replaced relief. She'd been spared in front of the entire restaurant, but that didn't mean there wouldn't be private consequences. Maybe he was angry she'd created a scene. Maybe defending his employees publicly was about appearances, and the real firing would happen behind closed doors. She followed him through the dining room, through the kitchen where staff carefully avoided eye contact, down a hallway she'd never had reason to enter. His office was at the end, door solid wood with a lock that looked more serious than standard restaurant security. Inside, the space was surprisingly sparse. A large desk with a computer and neat stacks of paperwork. Bookshelves holding what looked like actual books, not decorative props. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street. Leather furniture that had been broken in through use rather than aged artificially. Dante closed the door and gestured to a chair. "Sit." Maya sat, hands twisted together in her lap to hide their trembling. He moved to stand by the windows, backlit by afternoon sun that turned his silhouette into something otherworldly. "How long have you worked here?" he asked without turning around. 18 months. "And in that time, how many situations like this have you handled?" Maya considered lying, decided against it. 3. "Usually I can de-escalate before things get that public." "But you couldn't today." He turned to face her. "Why?" Because she wasn't angry about the wine. She was enjoying the power, enjoying making Sarah cry. Maya met his gaze directly. "I've dealt with entitled customers before, but cruelty is different. I couldn't let it continue." Dante studied her for a long moment. Maya felt exposed under that scrutiny, like he was cataloging every detail and reading things she didn't intend to show. "Do you know who I am?" he asked finally. "Really know, not just the name?" "You're Dante Moretti. You own this restaurant and probably others, and your family is connected to things I've deliberately avoided learning too much about." "Smart." He moved closer, leaning against his desk. "Most people either pretend complete ignorance or claim knowledge they don't have. You're honest about the line you've drawn." He paused. "That line is about to get complicated." Maya's stomach tightened. "Am I fired?" "No, you're promoted." She blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I'm what?" "Promoted to floor manager. 40-hour weeks, salary instead of tips, health insurance included. You'll oversee all servers, handle customer complaints, and have actual authority to make decisions about situations like what happened today." He pulled a business card from his pocket and held it out. "This is my private number. You use it if there's ever a problem you can't solve, or if someone tries to use their connections to intimidate you or your staff." Maya took the card with numb fingers. "I don't understand. Why would you—" "Because you did what I pay people to do. You protected someone vulnerable, stood up to someone powerful, and refused to let cruelty go unchallenged." Dante's expression was unreadable. That's exactly the kind of character I need in management. People who understand that power comes with responsibility, not just privilege. But Victoria Castellano is going to cause problems, he finished, probably significant ones. The Castellanos don't handle humiliation well, and banning Victoria from my restaurant will be seen as disrespect to her entire family. He met Maya's eyes directly. I'm telling you this because accepting this promotion means accepting those complications. It means being visible in a way that might make you uncomfortable. It means being connected, however tangentially, to my world. Maya should refuse, should thank him politely and go back to serving tables and staying invisible, should protect herself from whatever was coming. Instead, she thought about her grandmother's medical bills, about the electric bill sitting unopened, about 18 months of scraping by on tips and prayer. When do I start? She heard herself ask. Tomorrow. Come in at 9. We'll do paperwork and I'll introduce you to the systems. Dante straightened. But Maya, understand this. I don't make offers like this lightly, and I don't accept people into my organization, even the legitimate parts, without expecting loyalty in return. What kind of loyalty? The kind where you tell me if anyone threatens you or tries to use you to get information about my businesses. The kind where you trust me to handle problems rather than trying to solve them alone. He moved closer, and Maya caught the scent of expensive cologne and something else, something that reminded her of winter nights and dangerous possibilities. The kind where you understand that working for me means I protect you, but it also means you're mine to protect. The possessiveness in that last statement should have scared her. Instead, Maya felt something else entirely, awareness crackling between them like electricity, the weight of his attention making her hyper-conscious of every breath. I understand, she managed. Good. Dante stepped back, breaking the tension. Go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow your life gets considerably more complicated. Maya stood on shaking legs and walked to the door. Before she left, curiosity made her turn back. Why did you really promote me? The truth, not the official reason. Dante was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said quietly, because watching you protect Sarah reminded me why I got into this business in the first place. To create spaces where people are safe, where power is used to protect rather than exploit. His eyes held hers. You reminded me of the man I'm trying to be instead of the one everyone expects. Maya walked home in a daze, Dante's business card burning in her pocket like a brand. She'd entered that restaurant this morning as a server barely keeping her head above water. She was leaving as floor manager of an establishment owned by one of Chicago's most powerful crime families. And somewhere in the middle of that transformation, she'd caught the attention of a man who looked at her like she was both a problem to solve and a possibility to explore. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your first day starts at 9 a.m. Don't be late. And Maya? Thank you for today. DM, she saved the number, pressed the phone against her chest, and wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. Maya's grandmother was watching her evening telenovela when Maya walked through the door of their small Bronzeville apartment. The living room smelled like the jerk chicken seasoning Graham had been using for 40 years, mixed with the lemon furniture polish she insisted on applying weekly, despite Maya's protests that their secondhand furniture didn't need it. You're home early, Graham said without looking away from the screen, where two beautiful people argued passionately in Spanish. They finally fire you for having too much backbone? Actually, I got promoted. Maya dropped onto the couch beside her grandmother, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried her through the afternoon was crashing hard. Floor manager, salary, benefits, the whole thing. Graham's head swiveled so fast Maya worried about her neck. At 73, with one stroke already behind her, sudden movements weren't advisable. But the expression on her grandmother's face, Shock mixed with fierce pride made Maya's chest tight. Floor manager. Baby girl, that's wonderful. Graham grabbed Maya's hands, squeezing with strength that still surprised despite the tremor in her left side. Tell me everything. How did this happen? Maya told her, editing carefully. She mentioned the difficult customer and standing up for a coworker, but left out the Castellano name and exactly who Dante Moretti was. Graham knew Maya worked at a nice restaurant in a wealthy neighborhood. She didn't need to know about organized crime or the complicated world Maya had just stepped deeper into. So this Mr. Moretti, he saw you protecting that girl and decided you deserved better? Graham's eyes narrowed with the shrewdness that came from raising 3 children through Chicago's roughest decades. That's awfully convenient. What's he really want? Good management, Maya said, which was technically true. He said he values people with character and backbone. Mm-hmm. Graham didn't sound convinced, but she let it drop. Well, whatever his reasons, this is good news. Real good news. You can finally stop working yourself into the ground, maybe even go back to school part-time. The possibility hung in the air like a beautiful dream. Maya had deferred her business degree indefinitely when Graham got sick, watching her carefully planned future evaporate in a haze of hospital bills and rehabilitation costs. The idea that she might actually finish, might reclaim some of what she'd sacrificed, it was almost too much to hope for. Maybe, Maya said quietly. Let's see how the first few months go. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, processing the day's surreal turn of events. Her phone sat on the nightstand, Dante's number saved under DM Bellissimo. She looked him up after leaving the restaurant, spending an hour falling down an internet rabbit hole of newspaper articles, society page photographs, and carefully worded profiles that said everything and nothing. Dante Moretti was 34 years old, graduated from Northwestern with degrees in business and economics, officially ran a portfolio of legitimate businesses, 3 restaurants, 2 nightclubs, a commercial real estate firm, and a wine import company. Unofficially, he was the heir apparent to one of Chicago's oldest crime families, groomed from birth to eventually take over operations that spanned everything from gambling to labor unions to political influence. His father had died 5 years ago in what was ruled a heart attack, but widely whispered to be poisoning by a rival family. His uncle Giovanni currently ran the organization, but everyone knew Dante was being positioned to take over. He was photographed at charity galas and city council meetings, dating socialites and business heirs with calculated precision. He looked different in those photos, colder, more remote, playing a role for cameras and audiences. Nothing like the man who'd defended Sarah with quiet intensity, or who'd looked at Maya like she was something unexpected and worth examining. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. A text from that same unknown number. Can't sleep either? Maya stared at the message, heart suddenly racing. It was past midnight. What was Dante Moretti doing texting his new floor manager at this hour? Just processing the day, she typed back after a long hesitation. It's been eventful. The response came quickly. That's an understatement. The Castellanos are already making noise. Victoria filed a formal complaint with the Restaurant Association claiming discrimination. Maya sat up, sleep forgotten. Discrimination? On what grounds? Apparently, you and I conspired to humiliate her based on her family connections. She's spinning it as class warfare. A pause, then another message. Don't worry. My lawyers are handling it. But I wanted you to know what's coming. Should I be worried about my job? Your job is secure. But you should be prepared for attention you probably don't want. The Castellanos have friends in media. They'll try to make this a story. Maya's stomach sank. The last thing she needed was reporters digging into her life, asking questions about why she'd left school, exposing her grandmother's medical situation, turning her into some kind of symbol in a fight she didn't fully understand. I didn't ask for this, she typed. I know. And I'm sorry you're caught in it. But Maya. She waited, watching the 3 dots that indicated he was typing. You're not alone in this. Whatever comes, you have my full support and protection. That's not empty words. That's a promise. The intensity of that promise made something flutter in her chest. She barely knew this man. Shouldn't trust him, shouldn't feel this pull toward someone who represented everything complicated and dangerous she'd tried to avoid. Thank you, she finally replied. That means more than you probably realize. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. You too. Good night, Maya. She stared at her name on the screen, at the intimacy of him texting her in the middle of the night, at the way this felt less like boss and employee and more like something she couldn't name yet. Good night, Dante. The next morning arrived with the inevitability of consequences. Maya dressed carefully in black slacks and a cream blouse, professional but not trying too hard. She'd spent an hour on her hair, twisting her natural curls into an elegant updo that felt both polished and authentically her. Graham watched from the kitchen table, sipping the coffee Maya had made exactly the way she liked it. More cream than coffee. 2 sugars, served in the mug Maya's mother had painted in art class 30 years ago. You look beautiful, baby girl, Graham said softly, professional and strong, and exactly like someone who deserves to be in charge. Maya kissed her grandmother's forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of cocoa butter and Bengay. I'll call you at lunch. Your pills are on the counter, and Mrs. Chen is stopping by at noon to check on you. I'm not an invalid, Graham protested, but without real heat. They both knew the stroke had changed things, had made independence a careful negotiation rather than an assumption. I know, but humor me anyway. The red line was packed with morning commuters, everyone carefully avoiding eye contact while pressed together in intimate proximity. Maya claimed a pole near the door and watched Chicago scroll past through grimy windows. Her city, beautiful and brutal, full of people fighting their own battles for survival and dignity. She arrived at Bellissimo 15 minutes early, key card Dante had given her yesterday, granting access through the employee entrance. The restaurant was quiet in the morning, peaceful in a way it never was during service. Early sun streamed through the front windows, illuminating dust motes and making the marble floors glow. You're punctual. Dante's voice came from behind her. I appreciate that. Maya turned, words dying in her throat. Dante in a suit was intimidating. Dante in dark jeans and a simple black Henley, sleeves pushed up to reveal muscled forearms, hair slightly damp like he'd just showered. That was something else entirely. I believe in being professional, she managed, trying not to stare at the way the shirt fit across his shoulders. Good. Come on. I'll show you the office systems before the morning meeting with department heads. He gestured toward the hallway she'd walked down yesterday. Your office is next to mine. Close enough for easy communication, far enough for privacy. The office turned out to be larger than her apartment's living room. Windows overlooking the street, a proper desk with a new computer, file cabinets, even a small couch for breaks. On the desk sat a nameplate, Maya Robinson, floor manager. This is too much, Maya said faintly. This is what the position requires. Dante leaned against the doorframe, watching her take it in. You'll spend a lot of time here reviewing schedules, handling complaints, working on staff development. You need a space. That facilitates that work. Maya ran her fingers over the nameplate, emotion threatening to overwhelm her professional composure. 18 months ago, she'd been days away from graduating, planning internships and career trajectories. Then everything fell apart, and she'd convinced herself those dreams were permanently lost. Now here was an office with her name on it. Not the future she'd planned, but a future nonetheless. Thank you, she said quietly. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did. Dante's voice carried that intensity she was beginning to recognize. Maya, I meant what I said yesterday. You reminded me of why I got into legitimate business, to create something better than what I came from. Having you here, someone who operates from genuine principles rather than calculated advantage, that's valuable beyond what any salary could reflect. Before she could respond, voices echoed from the hallway. Dante straightened, professionalism sliding back into place. That'll be the department heads. Ready to meet your team? The morning meeting was simultaneously intimidating and enlightening. Marco, the bar manager she already knew, welcomed her warmly. Chef Antonio, a barrel-chested Italian who'd worked for the Moretti family for 20 years, assessed her with shrewd eyes before nodding approval. The kitchen manager, events coordinator, and sommelier all treated her with cautious respect, clearly waiting to see if she deserved the position or was just someone's favorite getting special treatment. Dante ran the meeting with efficient authority, updating everyone on reservations, upcoming events, and, crucially, the Victoria Castellano situation. As you've probably heard, we had an incident yesterday involving Ms. Castellano and two of our servers. His gaze swept the table. I've banned the Castellano family from dining here. This may cause complications, including potential media attention and pressure from associated businesses. The Castellanos have pull with the liquor board, Marco pointed out, concern evident. They could make licensing difficult. Let them try. Dante's voice was flat, dangerous. I have friends too, better friends. But I wanted you all aware that the next few weeks might be tense. If anyone approaches you, reporters, inspectors, anyone asking questions about yesterday, you direct them to our legal team. Clear? Everyone nodded. Maya felt the weight of their glances, knew they were connecting her to the complications Dante was describing. After the meeting dispersed, Dante pulled her aside. Walk with me. They ended up in the wine cellar, a temperature-controlled space beneath the restaurant that held thousands of bottles in carefully organized racks. The lighting was dim, intimate, creating the sensation of being separated from the rest of the world. There's something you need to understand, Dante said, running his fingers along a dusty bottle of Barolo. The Castellanos aren't just upset about Victoria's humiliation. They're upset because this gives them an excuse to push boundaries they've been testing for months. What kind of boundaries? Territory, influence, revenue streams. He pulled out the Barolo, examining the label. My uncle Giovanni maintains peace through carefully negotiated arrangements with other families. The Castellanos have been trying to expand beyond their agreements, testing whether we'll enforce consequences or let things slide. Maya's mouth went dry. And banning Victoria from the restaurant, that's you enforcing consequences. Exactly. I'm drawing a line, making it clear that disrespect toward my businesses and my people won't be tolerated. He looked at her directly, which means they'll try to undermine that line. And the easiest way to do that is through you. Through me? Alarm spiked through her chest. You're the new employee I promoted immediately after banning Victoria. You're the one who stood up to her publicly. In their eyes, you're the reason she was humiliated. Dante set the bottle down carefully. They'll try to discredit you, dig up anything in your past they can use, maybe even threaten you directly to make you quit or turn against me. Maya's legs felt unsteady. You're saying I'm a target now? Yes, and I'm sorry for that. He moved closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body in the cool cellar. But I'm also telling you that you're protected. I have security monitoring your apartment building, your grandmother's medical appointments, your commute. If anyone approaches you inappropriately, I'll know about it. She should be angry about the invasion of privacy, should demand he stop monitoring her life without permission. Instead, remembering the cold calculation in Victoria's eyes, Maya felt something closer to relief. This is insane. she whispered. Yesterday I was just a waitress trying to pay bills. Today I'm caught in some kind of gang war over a spilled glass of wine. Not over wine. Dante's hand came up, almost touching her face before he caught himself and lowered it. Over power and respect, and the complicated rules that govern my world. But Maya, if you want out, if this is too much, I'll understand. I'll make sure you have excellent references, help you find another position somewhere safe. It was the out she should take, the smart choice that kept her far away from organized crime and territorial disputes, and men who looked at her like Dante was looking at her now, with heat and concern, and something that felt dangerously close to possession. No, Maya heard herself say, I'm not running. You gave me this opportunity, and I'm going to prove I deserve it. Whatever the Castellanos try, I can handle it. Pride flickered across Dante's face. You say that now, but when things get difficult, I'll deal with them. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze. I've been handling difficult my entire life, Mr. Moretti. Rich people, trying to intimidate me is nothing compared to watching my grandmother almost die while drowning in medical debt. Dante, he corrected quietly. When we're alone, it's Dante. The intimacy of that request made her breath catch. Dante, she repeated, testing his name on her tongue. It felt significant somehow, like crossing an invisible line from professional to personal. They stood in the dim cellar, surrounded by aging wine and possibility. The air between them charged with things neither was quite ready to acknowledge. I should get back upstairs, Maya said finally. Staff arrives in an hour and I need to review the schedule. Right. Yes. Dante stepped back, and she could have sworn she saw reluctance in the movement. There's a staff manual in your office with all the protocols. Marco can answer questions about front-of-house operations, and Antonio handles anything kitchen-related. Maya nodded, heading toward the stairs. At the top, she turned back. Dante was still standing among the wine bottles, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Thank you, she said, for the protection, for believing I can do this job, for all of it. You don't need to thank me, Maya. You earned this position. I'm just glad you're willing to accept the complications that come with it. The first day passed in a blur of learning systems, meeting staff, and handling the inevitable crises that accompanied restaurant management. A produce delivery arrived spoiled, requiring emergency reordering. 2 servers called in sick, necessitating schedule juggling. A regular customer insisted on a specific table that was already reserved, demanding Maya's diplomatic intervention. She handled it all with growing confidence, drawing on skills she'd developed during her abbreviated business program and the hard-won experience of 18 months navigating difficult customers. By the time dinner service started, she'd earned cautious respect from staff who'd been skeptical about her rapid promotion. You're a natural, Marco said during a quiet moment at the bar. He was mixing drinks with practiced efficiency, barely watching his hands as he spoke. Most new managers try too hard to prove themselves. You just do the work. I've had practice dealing with chaos, Maya said, watching the dining room fill with well-dressed patrons. This is just organized chaos with better lighting. Marco laughed, but his expression grew serious. Just be careful. Word's already spreading about yesterday. People are watching to see how this plays out with the Castellanos. What people? Everyone in our world? He poured Prosecco into delicate flutes. When a Moretti bans a Castellano, that's news. When they do it defending a black server against a wealthy white woman, that's a statement. People will interpret it different ways, and not all of them are friendly to you or the boss. Maya's stomach tightened. What kind of interpretations? Some will see it as Dante standing, on principle. Others will see it as him going soft, letting personal feelings override smart business decisions. Marco met her eyes. And if they think you're the reason he's making emotional choices instead of strategic ones, that makes you a problem they might want to eliminate. The casual way he said eliminate made Maya's blood run cold. You're saying people might try to kill me over a restaurant incident? I'm saying this world operates on different rules than you're used to. Power, respect, and perception are everything. You disrupted the balance, and people will respond. He finished the Prosecco orders and set them on a tray. But Dante's protection is real. As long as he's invested in keeping you safe, you're probably safer than you've ever been. Just don't mistake that safety for normalcy. That night, after closing, Maya found Dante in his office reviewing paperwork. He'd shed his jacket, tie loosened, looking tired in a way that made him somehow more human. "Good first day?" he asked without looking up. "Complicated first day." Maya leaned against the doorframe. "Marco said people think I'm a problem." Dante's pen stilled. "Marco talks too much. He's trying to help. Trying to make sure I understand what I've stepped into." She moved into the office, closing the door behind her. "Dante, I need you to be honest with me. Am I actually in danger? Or is everyone being dramatic?" He set down his pen and gave her his full attention. "Define danger." "Physical harm. Death threats. The kind of danger that makes security details necessary." "Probably not immediate physical danger," Dante said carefully. "The Castellanos aren't stupid enough to directly harm someone under my protection. That would guarantee war." He paused. "But harassment, intimidation, attempts to undermine your credibility or get you fired, that's all possible. Maybe even likely." Maya processed this, trying to separate reasonable concern from paranoia. "And if they succeed in driving me away from Bellissimo, what does that mean for you?" "It means I look weak. Like I can't protect my own people." His jaw tightened. "Which invites further challenges from families that are already looking for any sign I'm not ready to eventually take over from my uncle. So I'm not just a floor manager. I'm a symbol of your authority." "You're both." Dante stood, moving around the desk. "You're a qualified professional who earned this position through character and competence. But yes, you've also become symbolically important. How I handle challenges to you reflects on my ability to lead." Maya laughed without humor. "I just wanted to pay my grandmother's medical bills." "I know." He stopped a few feet away, hands shoved in his pockets. "And I dragged you into something infinitely more complicated. If you want out." "Stop offering me outs," Maya interrupted. "I already told you I'm not running, but I need to understand the full picture, not the sanitized version you think I can handle." Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled his phone from his pocket and opened an app, turning the screen to face her. "This is the security feed from your apartment building." Maya stared at the grainy black and white video showing her building's entrance, Mrs. Chen arriving with groceries, a UPS driver delivering packages. "You're watching my home," she said flatly. "I'm watching for threats to your home." He swiped to another camera view. "This is the corner by your red line stop, and this is the street outside Bellissimo." Another swipe. "Your grandmother's doctor's office, the pharmacy where she fills prescriptions. Every location you regularly visit has someone monitoring for unusual activity." It should have felt invasive, should have made her furious about privacy violations. Instead, seeing the thoroughness of his protection, Maya felt something else, a complicated mix of security and significance. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked quietly. Dante's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. "Since yesterday afternoon. The moment I decided to promote you, I called my security team and had them establish surveillance. Before I even accepted the position. Before I even offered it." He put the phone away. "The moment you stepped between Victoria and Sarah, I knew you were going to be part of my organization. Everything that followed was just logistics." The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed her. Instead, Maya felt heat pool low in her stomach, awareness crackling between them in the quiet office. That's very presumptuous, she managed. I'm a presumptuous man. His eyes held hers. I see something I want. I acquire it. Usually through negotiation and mutual benefit, but I'm not opposed to more direct methods when necessary. And what do you want from me exactly? The question hung in the air. Dante moved closer, slow enough that she could step back if she wanted. Maya stayed exactly where she was. Right now, I want you to understand that choosing to work for me means accepting a level of involvement in my life that goes beyond typical employment. His voice dropped lower. It means trusting me to keep you safe, means letting me make decisions about your security without questioning every detail, means accepting that you're mine to protect, and I take that responsibility seriously. Yours, Maya repeated. That's an interesting word choice. It's an accurate one. He was close enough now that she could feel his body heat, smell the expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him. My employee, my responsibility, my... He stopped, jaw tightening around whatever he'd almost said. You're what? Maya pressed, heart hammering. I don't know yet. The admission seemed to cost him. But something. Something more than just professional. Maya knew she should step back. Should maintain boundaries that kept this situation from becoming impossibly complicated. Instead, she found herself swaying slightly forward. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. The worst, Dante agreed. His hand came up, fingers brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. You work for me. I'm connected to things you should want no part of. We've known each other 2 days. All true. Her eyes fluttered closed at his touch. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since yesterday. His thumb traced her jaw. About how you stood up to Victoria without any certainty that I'd support you. About how you protect people weaker than yourself without expecting anything in return. About how you look at me like I'm someone worth believing in instead of someone to fear. Maya opened her eyes, finding his face inches from hers. You are someone worth believing in, but you're also someone who terrifies me. Good. His smile was sharp, dangerous. Fear means you understand reality, but belief? His forehead touched hers. Belief means you see possibility. The kiss happened without conscious decision. One moment they were suspended in possibility, the next his mouth was on hers. Hot, demanding, perfect. Maya's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he growled low in his throat, backing her against the desk. His hands cupped her face like she was precious, even as his kiss turned consuming. Maya lost herself in the sensation, in the contradiction of his gentleness and his intensity, in the way he made her feel both protected and wildly out of control. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. That was, he started. A mistake? Maya supplied breathlessly. I was going to say inevitable. His hand slid down to her waist, but also probably inadvisable given the power dynamic. Reality crashed back. Maya stepped out of his arms, hand pressed to her swollen lips. I should go. Maya, I need to think. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. This is too much. Too fast. Everything is too much. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. She made it to the door before Dante's voice stopped her. Maya, whatever you're feeling, confusion, fear, uncertainty, it's all valid. Take the time you need. But know this, what's happening between us, it's not just physical. It's not just circumstance. He paused. I've been running businesses and managing complicated situations since I was 20 years old. I've learned to recognize what matters. And you matter. Maya fled before she could do something foolish like run back to him. But as she rode the red line home, surrounded by late-night commuters and the city's endless motion, Dante's words echoed in her mind. You matter. She'd spent 18 months feeling like she didn't. Like she was just surviving, day by day, without significance beyond keeping her grandmother alive and bills paid. Now a man who commanded power and respect with equal ease was telling her she mattered to him. And God help her, she was starting to believe him. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm that felt both normal and surreal. Maya settled into her role as floor manager with growing confidence, earning genuine respect from staff who'd initially been skeptical. She streamlined scheduling, implemented a new training program for servers, and handled difficult customers with diplomatic efficiency that made even Chef Antonio grudgingly approve. The restaurant thrived under her attention. Reservations stayed full, staff turnover decreased, and the dining room operated with smooth precision that reflected well on Dante's entire organization. But underneath the professional success, tension built like a storm-gathering force. The Castellanos hadn't made any obvious moves, but their presence was felt in subtle ways. Health inspectors appeared with suspicious frequency, finding minor violations that required immediate correction. A prominent food critic published a scathing review questioning Bellissimo's recent management changes and declining standards. Two regular customers, both with Castellano connections, canceled their standing reservations without explanation. And then there was Dante. They'd maintained careful professional distance since that kiss in his office, both recognizing that mixing business with whatever was developing between them was dangerous. But the awareness never disappeared. Maya felt his eyes on her during service, tracking her movements through the dining room. She caught herself watching for him, pulse quickening when he arrived in the evenings to review operations. Their late-night text conversations had become routine. Nothing inappropriate, discussions about restaurant operations, questions about staff management, updates on the Castellano situation. But underneath the professional content ran something deeper, more intimate. The way he asked if she'd eaten dinner. Her concern when he mentioned a difficult meeting with his uncle. Small moments of care that felt significant precisely because they were small. You're playing with fire, Brittany warned during one of their weekly dinners at Maya's apartment. She'd become a regular presence since Maya's promotion, partly supportive friend and partly concerned watchdog. A gorgeous, powerful, deeply dangerous fire. Nothing's happening, Maya protested, stabbing at her takeout Thai food. We're maintaining professional boundaries. Professional boundaries that include him texting you at midnight to make sure you got home safe. Brittany pointed her fork accusingly. That man is courting you, Maya, in his very possessive, slightly terrifying way. Graham looked up from her own dinner, eyes shrewd. This is the boss you told me about? The one who promoted you? Yes, Graham, but it's not like that. It's exactly like that, Brittany interrupted. He's into her. She's into him. They're both pretending they're not, and it's only a matter of time before something breaks. And when it does? Graham's tone carried warning. What happens to your job, your security, everything you've built? It was the question Maya asked herself every night, lying in bed staring at her phone, resisting the urge to text Dante something that would crack their careful professional facade. The answer came on a Thursday night, 3 weeks and 4 days after her promotion. Maya was locking up, last to leave as usual, when she heard voices in the alley behind the restaurant. Male voices, aggressive tones, the particular quality of sound that preceded violence. Every instinct screamed at her to stay inside, call security, let Dante's people handle whatever was happening. Instead, she grabbed her phone and pushed open the back door. 4 men had someone pinned against the brick wall. It took her a moment to recognize Sarah Chen beneath the fear and tears, the young server who'd spilled wine on Victoria Castellano all those weeks ago. Please, Sarah was sobbing. I don't know anything. I just work here. Please. You work for the Morettis, one of the men said. His accent carried Brooklyn roots, and Maya's stomach dropped recognizing the implication. Which means, you see things, hear things. You're going to tell us about Dante Moretti's operations, his schedules, his vulnerabilities. I don't know anything, Sarah's voice broke. I serve food. That's all. I don't know anything about his business. The man's hand wrapped around Sarah's throat. Then maybe we need to motivate you better. Maya's finger hit the panic button on her phone, the emergency app Dante had insisted she install, connected directly to his security team. Then she stepped fully into the alley. Let her go. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Right now. 4 faces turned toward her. 4 men, all built like violence was their profession, all looking at her like she was an amusing interruption to their evening. Well, the leader said, releasing Sarah's throat. Maya Robinson. We were hoping to run into you too. Saves us a trip to Bronzeville. Ice flooded Maya's veins. They knew her name, knew where she lived. This wasn't random intimidation. This was targeted, planned, designed to send a specific message. I've already called Moretti Security, Maya said, positioning herself between the men and Sarah. They'll be here in under 3 minutes. If you're smart, you'll leave now. 3 minutes is plenty of time. The leader moved closer. He was maybe 40, with dead eyes and a boxer's broken nose. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Dante Moretti that the Castellanos aren't interested in restaurant bans or petty disputes. We want full access to his Lakeshore Drive import docks. We want a cut of his downtown protection operations. And we want him to understand that refusing means everyone he cares about becomes fair game. I'm not delivering threats for you. No? His smile was ugly. Then maybe we need to give you a reason to take us seriously. He lunged fast, but Maya was faster. 18 months of walking Chicago's streets at night had taught her to anticipate violence. She dodged sideways, grabbed the trash can lid she'd spotted earlier, and swung it with all her strength. The metal connected with his face with a satisfying crack. He stumbled back, blood pouring from his nose, cursing viciously. You bitch! Headlights flooded the alley. 2 black SUVs screamed to a halt, disgorging men who moved with military precision. Dante's security team, heavily armed and absolutely done with subtlety. The Castellano men ran, but Dante's people were faster. 3 were tackled within seconds. Only the leader made it to the alley's far end before disappearing into the night. Then Dante was there, emerging from the lead SUV like violence given human form. He took in the scene with one sweeping glance, Maya holding a trash can lid, breathing hard, Sarah crumpled against the wall, his security team restraining the captured men. Get them to the safe house, he ordered, voice absolutely cold. I want to know everything. Who sent them, what they were told, what they plan to do. Use whatever methods are necessary. His men dragged the captives away. Dante turned to Sarah, and his voice gentled fractionally. Are you hurt? No. Maya stopped them before they... Sarah couldn't finish, dissolving into tears. Luca, Dante called to one of his remaining security. Take Sarah home. Stay with her until I send a permanent detail. No one approaches her without my explicit permission. After Sarah was safely in a vehicle, Dante's attention fixed on Maya with laser intensity. Inside. Now. She followed him through the back door, down the hallway, into his office. The moment the door closed, he rounded on her. What the hell were you thinking? They were hurting Sarah. So you confronted 4 armed men alone? His voice was deadly quiet, more frightening than shouting. You walked into a situation that could have gotten you killed or worse? I hit the panic button. I knew you'd come. In 3 minutes! He moved into her space, anger and fear radiating off him in waves. Do you have any idea what they could have done to you in 3 minutes? What they were planning to do? I couldn't just leave her. Maya's own anger ignited. She's a 19-year-old kid who got caught in this mess because she spilled wine on the wrong woman. Was I supposed to hide inside and let them terrorize her? Yes. Dante grabbed her shoulders. Yes. You were supposed to stay safe and let my people handle it. That's why I have security. Why I've spent weeks protecting you, so you don't have to risk yourself. I'm not some delicate thing you can lock away. Maya shoved at his chest. I'm not going to stand by while people I care about get hurt, especially when it's my fault. They're targets. Your fault? Dante's grip tightened. How is any of this your fault? I stood up to Victoria. I made this personal. If I'd just kept my head down, then you wouldn't be you. He pulled her closer, voice raw. You'd be someone who lets cruelty happen without consequences. Someone who values safety over principle. And I wouldn't. He stopped, jaw working. Wouldn't what? Wouldn't be completely out of my mind about you. He finished roughly. Wouldn't spend every minute worrying about your safety. Wouldn't be this close to starting a war because someone threatened what's mine. I'm not yours, Maya whispered, but without conviction. Aren't you? His forehead touched hers. Because it feels like you've been mine since the moment you stepped between Victoria and Sarah, since you looked at me like I was someone worth believing in, since you kissed me in this office and made me want things I have no business wanting. Dante. I was terrified. The admission seemed torn from somewhere deep. When the panic alert came through and I realized you were in danger, I was absolutely terrified. I've been shot at, threatened, nearly killed half a dozen times, and I've never felt fear like that. The thought of losing you. Maya kissed him to stop the words, to prevent him from saying things that would change everything. But he was already pulling her closer, kissing her back with desperate intensity, his hands cradling her face like she was infinitely precious. This wasn't like their first kiss, tentative and questioning. This was claiming, acknowledging, accepting. His mouth moved over hers with possessive demand, and Maya responded with equal hunger, fingers tangling in his hair, body pressed against his solid warmth. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. This complicates everything, he said. I know. You work for me. You're under my protection. Getting involved personally creates conflicts and vulnerabilities. I know that too. And I don't care. He kissed her again, softer this time. I should. I should be smart and strategic and keep this professional. But I stopped being smart about you the moment I promoted you. Maya pulled back enough to look at him directly. What happens now? Now? Dante's thumb traced her jaw. Now I end the Castellano situation permanently. They crossed a line tonight, threatening you directly. That requires a response that makes it very clear what happens to people who touch what's mine. You're going to start a war. I'm going to end one. His expression turned cold, dangerous. The Castellanos have been pushing boundaries for months. Tonight they pushed too far. By tomorrow morning, they'll understand exactly what that mistake cost them. Maya should argue. Should tell him violence wasn't the answer. That escalation would only create more danger. But remembering Sarah's terror, the dead look in that man's eyes, the casual way he'd threatened everyone Dante cared about, she couldn't find it in herself to ask for mercy. Just come back safe, she said instead. Whatever you're planning, whatever you have to do, just come back. Something in Dante's expression softened. Always. I promise you, Maya, I always come back. He kissed her once more, then stepped away, professionalism sliding back into place. Luca will take you home. You're not going anywhere alone until this is resolved. And tomorrow, he paused. Tomorrow your security detail triples. No arguments. I wouldn't dream of arguing with you right now. Smart woman. He moved to his desk, already pulling out his phone to make calls that would set violence in motion. Go home. Get some rest. I'll text you when it's done. Maya left, but looking back from the doorway, she saw Dante silhouetted against the windows, phone to his ear, discussing things she didn't want to know in detail. He looked like what he was, a man who controlled an empire built on calculated violence and carefully maintained power. And God help her, she was falling in love with him anyway. The next morning arrived with news that spread through Chicago's underworld like wildfire. The Castellano family's warehouse on Lakeshore Drive had burned to the ground. Their downtown protection operations had been systematically dismantled overnight, clients switching allegiances with suspicious speed, and Dominic Castellano himself, Victoria's father, had been visited by Giovanni Moretti and several associates for what was described as a frank discussion about boundaries and respect. By noon, a formal peace agreement was announced. The Castellanos would stay out of Moretti territory permanently. All harassment of Moretti employees and associates would cease immediately. And Victoria Castellano was being sent to their family's interests in Miami, effectively exiled from Chicago. Marco told Maya the details during lunch prep, his voice carrying grudging admiration. Dante doesn't mess around when someone threatens his people. The Castellanos got off light, honestly. 20 years ago, they'd all be dead. He's not like his father, Maya said quietly. No, he's smarter, more controlled. Marco glanced at her, and apparently more dangerous when motivated by the right reasons. That evening, Dante appeared at closing time. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept, but satisfaction radiated from him. It's done, he said simply. The Castellanos won't bother you or anyone else here again. I heard. Maya moved into his space, unable to maintain professional distance anymore. Are you okay? I didn't kill anyone, if that's what you're asking. He pulled her close, breathing in like her scent steadied him. Though I came close, but I promised you I'd try to be better than what people expect, and I'm trying. Thank you. They stood there in the empty restaurant, holding each other while Chicago's nightlife hummed beyond the windows. Eventually, Dante pulled back enough to look at her. I meant what I said last night, about you being mine. His hand cupped her face. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I'm done pretending this is just professional or that I can keep my distance. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I want you, Maya. Not just as my floor manager, though you're brilliant at that. I want you in my life, in my space, in my bed. I want to come home to you and know you're safe. I want... He stopped, seeming to struggle with vulnerability. I want everything. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. That's a lot of wanting. Too much? She thought about her grandmother's warnings, about Brittany's concern, about all the logical reasons this was dangerous and complicated and probably doomed. Then she thought about how she felt when Dante looked at her. How he'd defended Sarah and protected Maya without hesitation. How he was trying to be better than his legacy demanded. No, she said. Not too much. Just terrifying. I can work with terrifying. His smile was real, warm, transforming his face from dangerous to beautiful. As long as you're willing to be terrified with me, I think I already am. The kiss that followed was promise and claiming and beginning. And when Dante finally pulled away, Maya knew with absolute certainty that her life had changed permanently. She'd walked into Bellissimo 18 months ago just trying to survive. Now she was building something else entirely, something complicated and dangerous and absolutely worth the risk. Come home with me, Dante said quietly. Tonight. Let me show you what wanting everything actually means. Maya looked into his eyes, saw heat and tenderness and possessive intensity, and made her choice. Yes. They left Bellissimo together, stepping into Chicago's night with all its possibilities and dangers, two people who'd found something unexpected in the middle of chaos. And whatever came next, complications, challenges, the messy reality of loving someone from a world she'd never imagined entering, Maya was ready to face it. Because some things were worth the risk, some people were worth believing in, and Dante Moretti, with all his contradictions and complications, was absolutely worth both. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.